So good morning and a very warm welcome to all of the early birds. My name is Val and we'll be kicking off our session at 11 o'clock. But great to have you on the line. In the meantime, we're going to be posting the Menti link. We'd love for you to engage with us. So good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome to you. My name is Val. We'll be kicking off our financial wellness talk on Mind Shift to Money Shift at 11 o'clock. In the meantime, we would love to ask you to engage with us on Menti Polling, where our first question is simply, what comes to mind when you think of the word money? We'll be kicking off at 11 o'clock. Thank you, and thank you for joining early.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this session. It is 10:57 and we are 3 minutes to our start time. Thank you to those of you that did join much earlier and still are quite early. We do have our other colleagues and our other attendees joining us in a couple of minutes so that we can kick off the session. In the meantime, could I kindly ask if you guys could share with us how you're feeling? You could let us know how you're feeling via Menti polling. Menti allows for you to remain anonymous, but yet tell us how you are feeling. So we cannot see who said what, but we can definitely see how it is that you are feeling. So we do have a couple of people already responding, which is great. If you do want to be part of the group that is responding and taking part in our polls during the session, all you need to do is click on the link. Val was kind enough to share that in the chat function. I will also just keep posting the link for those that have just joined as well to be able to actually let us know how they're feeling. So before we start, we would greatly appreciate knowing how you're feeling. It helps us to interact with you guys throughout the session to basically go through our Menti polling. So we've got 2 minutes to the start time. If you do know of somebody who said they intended on coming onto the session and joining us, give them a nudge and let them know the session is about to start, so that we'll be able to kick off. It is quite nice to have like a mix of different people on the call to actually interact with us today. So thank you so much for actually joining. There's the Menti link in the chat. We've got more responses coming through. Can see some people have peace of mind today. Some people are a little bit stressed. Some people want more when it comes to money. What they're thinking about money would be, well, it gives me peace of mind. I never have enough of it. I want a little bit more. It's my happiness. Some people are thinking about debt. So we all have a different train of thought when it comes to money matters. So it will be interesting to have a nice session with, mixed reactions and opinions and feelings. But today we want to talk about mind shift to money shift, right? So some people will say it around money shift to mind shift. Either way, you're talking about money and our minds. So thank you for joining us. We've got about a minute or so. Then we can kick off our session. We'll see you soon. Right, it's 11 o'clock. We're at the top of the hour. We still have some people trickling in, some people still joining us, but I do want to remain respectful of everybody's time. I'm sure we do have people who've got a 12 o'clock that will start shortly. So I wanted us to kick off the session right at 11. Welcome to everybody that is on the session. Thank you very, very much for joining our financial talk. This is our financial talk part 3. Can you believe it? We've had 2 of these already. We're making our way well onto the 4th one, and we've had good sessions so far. So thank you so much for your time. We truly appreciate it. And as usual, I'm not by myself, but I'm going to introduce you to our facilitator as well, and my co-host for today. Today, I just wanted to share first, before we kick off, how we are interacting with you guys. We're using Menti as per usual. You can go onto the chat function. I will drop that off in the chat function. That's your link to actually let us know what you're feeling, what you're thinking, what are your concerns, what are your opinions. But today, I am with Val Leeming. My name is Maria Magwaza, and we will be your co-hosts today in your financial talk for today. So I would love to give over to Val to introduce herself. She is a wealth of knowledge. So she's going to be sharing a couple of things about mind shift to money shift, so that we'll be able to go through our content nicely today. Just before I hand over to you, Val, can I just ask to go through general housekeeping? If I may remind you to just check your mic as soon as you join to see if it's muted. And then if you do have anything to ask or say, please can you raise your hand so that we can call attention to you? If it's something that you can share also by typing, go right ahead and put it in the chat function, and then we'll be able to read through it and share with everybody on the call. We do like to do a little Q&A at the end, but we also encourage you to write your questions as and when you think of them during the call, so that they don't actually leave you, or you forget them, or you kind of mix them up somehow with all the content you're taking in. So please just let us know how you're feeling, what's your concern, what's your opinion. Share best practice. That's the nice thing about being on such a wonderful mixer like this open webinar. So today I'm going to hand over to Val Leeming. She's going to be our facilitator. But Val, if you could just kindly introduce yourself, just let us know who Val is. For those who haven't been here before, just who Val is and what are we doing today?
Thank you so much, Maria, and welcome everybody. It's great to see so many people on the line as we're talking about our mind shift, perhaps to or money shift to mind lift, whichever way you want to look at it. I've been in the financial wellness field for the past 20 years, going on 20 years. I'm a mom. I've got 3 kids. I'm very often I think my kids forget, they forget to call me mom. They simply think I'm an ATM. So I certainly can relate to financial wellness and financial stress. And I'm really passionate about the fact that we all work in order to earn a living. And yet, so often we don't have money conversations. So often we find ourselves in a situation where money is this taboo topic. And so I'm thrilled that Reality Wellness have brought to you these sessions, really in order to engage with you, and perhaps just very importantly, to sort of highlight how financial wellness impacts all levels of wellness. So a reminder that Reality Wellness, the services are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And if you're wanting to reach out to a financial coach to get support and assistance, I've popped the link into the chat. We know that very often when we're feeling financially vulnerable, we don't know who to talk to, and a financial coach can certainly assist you no matter where you're at on your financial journey. And it's free, it's available to you, it's part of the Reality Wellness program. And so Maria and I are really going to be having this conversation with you today around, our minds, why we do what we do when it comes to our personal finances, and how we can perhaps become more money mindful. So we're going to be talking about this concept of mindfulness, and then really take a look at what do some of our money habits actually cost us? And perhaps by becoming aware of that, we're able to then start to make different decisions. So in order to make sure that today's session is as interactive as possible, Maria is going to be keeping an eye on the chat function. I ask you to please switch off your cameras just to make sure that the colleagues on the line get good quality, and we look forward to enjoying this session with you today. So let's get going and let's talk about our minds and how powerful our minds truly are. And so when thinking about this, I was thinking this morning as I was getting dressed for work, and I thought I need to wear something bright. I thought about this quote: you need to learn how to select your thoughts just as you would select your clothes. It's so important. And very often when it comes to financial well-being, the solution starts up here and not necessarily in our bank accounts or in our pockets or in our wallets. It all starts with our mindset. And in order to become aware, we need to what our thoughts are. But in today's hectic, busy world, I can honestly tell you that I'm sure your mind is full of 101 things. Perhaps as you're sort of on this call today, you're multitasking, you're doing perhaps emails, perhaps you're checking your phone, perhaps you're on WhatsApp, perhaps you're on social media, perhaps your boss is sending you a message, and you're thinking, sure, my mind is full, and therefore I'm not perhaps mindful. So I think, when we talk about mindfulness, it's so important to really unpack what does it mean to be truly mindful? And this is a concept we're going to unpack, and then we're going to unpack how do you become perhaps money mindful. But let's just start with this concept of mindfulness. And I'm wanting us just to watch this short video because I think it's such a great way just to remind ourselves of this concept. So if you could just give me a nice thumbs up if you can hear this video. Thank you.
Just as exercise helps us take care of our bodies, mindfulness is a skill that keeps our minds healthy. Mindfulness helps us perform at our best and better navigate the inevitable ups and downs of life. Mindfulness is noticing and being curious about what's happening right now. It's the opposite of being on autopilot, when our bodies are doing one thing and our minds are somewhere else, often thinking about the past or worrying about the future. When we're mindful, we engage our senses deliberately, and we really take in the things that we can see, smell, hear, taste, and touch. Just as we can build our muscles by going to the gym, we can build our mindfulness muscle through regular practice, known as meditation. All it takes is a few minutes a day to see the benefits. So find the time. Your mind will thank you for it. Just as exercise helps.
Sorry about that. So I just think it's such a great recap of this concept of becoming mindful. And as a working mom, as a businesswoman, as a financial coach and educator, as a sister, as a colleague, my mind is very often full of 101 different things. And perhaps I don't always give enough consideration to my money mindfulness. So just like we had that definition of what mindfulness is, really money mindfulness is that ability to be present and being aware of why you do what you do, becoming almost what I call money conscious. You know, I use a number of ways to pay for things. I use Apple Pay. I swipe my credit card. Very seldom do I use hard, cold cash when paying for goods and items. Debit orders, stop orders, electronic banking. And so often I'm not aware of the financial decisions that I make. It's like the ping on the end of the line, and I'm not necessarily intentional and aware of what I'm doing. So mindfulness is all about, yes, being present in the moment, but we've also sometimes, in order to be fully engaged, we've also got to take a step back in time to think about how our present money beliefs, how our thoughts about money are perhaps shaped by our past experiences. And so you need to almost think about, what were your earliest experiences around money? Did you grow up in a family where perhaps money was a constant form of anxiety and worry? Did you grow up in a family where perhaps money was plentiful? What were your parents and caregivers or relatives' relationships with money like? So it's vitally important. In order to start changing our mindsets, we need to become mindful of our relationship with money. So I'd love to just ask you once again on Mentee Polling, and I'm going to ask Maria, for those of you who've just joined us, to really engage with us on Mentee. Mentee is a completely confidential platform where we can share our thoughts and feelings without anybody knowing who has sort of how we're answering that question. And because it's so private and confidential, I really encourage you to use Mentee Polling. But have you really thought about your financial past, why you do what you do? And I'm often reminded, and I'm seeing many of you saying, yes, I'm aware of it. I've thought about it. Growing up in a big family, one of my big money mentors growing up was my grandmother. In fact, she was the first person to give me money for the very first time. And I remember growing up in a big family. I'm one of 9 children. One of my earliest money memories is going to the grocery store with my mom and her not having enough money to pay for the groceries. And I remember feeling intense anxiety, and I literally might have been 4 or 5 years old, but I was really, really anxious about that financial situation. Now, I'm sure in terms of thinking about this and becoming perhaps mindfulness of your financial history book, I wonder about this sort of saying, I've got 2 daughters and a son, and very often somebody says, oh my goodness, Jessica looks just like you did at that age. Or Nicholas is just the way, he's so like his father in the following ways. And so it's vitally important that we unpack what we call this concept of intergenerational influence, or our financial DNA, or our money DNA. And so the question is sort of your financial skills or your financial knowledge levels passed down generationally? And there was a really interesting study done a couple of years back where they took a look at people's behavior, and they said that a lot of that behavior was linked to their behavior of their parents during adolescence. And with having a teenager in the house, I often think about the impact I'm having on her future financial self. Now, the good news is that by becoming more money mindful, by becoming aware of our money habits, by becoming fully money conscious. The good news is that you can become aware of your financial past. Sometimes we need to make peace with that financial past in order for us to make different choices. So DNA or intergenerational influence is not necessarily the only thing that determines the outcome at the end of the day. So it almost comes down to this concept of what we call the psychology of spending. Have you ever wondered why you bought that pair of shoes that are slightly uncomfortable, yet you still bought them? And so the science of behavioral finance really explores why we do what we do. And just like our minds are incredibly full, similarly, we are literally, there's thousands and thousands of bits of information that we process on a daily, hourly basis. And so neuroscientists, economists, psychologists have pointed out that we tend to have to rely on almost emotional shortcuts when making financial decisions. And very often our financial decisions that we make are subconscious. So in order to make that money shift, we need to start by making that mind shift. In terms of mind, it's also important to ask yourself, does your mood, so slightly different from your mind, but does your mood ever affect your money actions? So just think about that for a moment. If you're in a good mood, does it make you spend more money? If you're in a bad mood, does it make you spend more money? How does your mood, if you're feeling angry or if you're feeling sad, does it affect your money actions? And once again, it's all about becoming more mindful. And I'm seeing the results come in, and thank you so much. At the moment, it looks like around 70 to 75% of you are saying, yes, my mood definitely affects my actions that we make. And so once again, we need to become mindful or conscious in terms of perhaps being aware and asking ourselves that question, do I really need this? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Why do I want to buy this item? Very often people talk about impulse buying because we simply realize that we're doing something on impulse. And so we need to become perhaps a bit more money conscious and have an alternative. Instead of spending or swiping my card, could I do something differently? And without a doubt, I definitely have found myself spending money sometimes when I'm feeling emotions. So having that emotional response or reaction to money, having this heart relationship, not a rational head relationship. So what could I do differently? Maybe I can chat about the problem. Maybe I can journal and find out what's really making me unhappy. Could I perhaps have a bath or relax or have a shower in order to de-stress? And I guess the magic happens when we're able to become perhaps a bit more conscious of our money thoughts and why we're doing what we're doing, and then be able to perhaps find an alternative. And so mind sort of shift step number one is really to think about your money beliefs, your beliefs around money, because very often we have both positive or negative money beliefs. And they could literally be around perhaps defining ourselves as not being good with managing money. So many people who engage with us on financial coaching, one of the first things they say is, I'm bad at managing my money. Or I'm never going to be wealthy because I always like to help other people. Or there's this self-limiting belief that there's never going to be enough money. Or sometimes we feel perhaps unworthy of receiving a certain amount of money, or I've got to work really hard in order to make money. And so when we almost want to change our mindsets, there are some simple steps that we need to follow, and we're going to be unpacking some of this methodology for you today. And I guess, as I said, it starts with this awareness of our own mindsets around money, then sometimes we need to perhaps forgive ourselves. Perhaps we need to stop comparing ourselves. Perhaps we need to focus on the glass being half full, not half empty. And then from a realistic perspective, we need to become aware of where our money is going. This incredible tool, this budget, which tells money where to go instead of wondering where it did. But if we want to have a money shift, if we want to have a different results, it starts up here. So very often we realize that by becoming aware of our money mindset, the problem isn't money itself, it's the way in which we approach this issue of money. And people who think that money is something within their control ultimately start to achieve different financial levels of success, whatever that level of success potentially means to you personally. I will never forget a couple of years ago, it was probably around 15 years ago, a friend of mine said to me, you know, Val, I don't believe you will ever reach wealth point. And I was devastated by that comment or that insight, but it really made me think about, well, what is my money mindset telling her? Why is she having this ability to place me or label me as somebody who won't reach wealth point? What made her say that? And I guess by becoming aware of my own money mindset and by thinking about it, and by thinking about my own anxiety levels around money and my financial history book, I was able to then become more aware and say, actually, there's certain things that I need to change. So really, very often we say, money either controls you or you control money. But the point is, it starts here. So money mindfulness as an exercise is really, really, really important. It's by literally taking time out of your busy day, single tasking, and asking yourself, you know, some perhaps exercises or questions to get you to reflect on where you're at. You know, does money make you feel important or valuable? Is the phone that you use or the car that you drive or the clothes that you wear or the brand, is it really important to you? Does that define you? Does money make you feel good about where you're at? Vitally important to do what we call these money mindfulness exercises. And the good news is that by spending some quiet time reflecting on our thoughts about money, we can then start to move forward. And one of the critical steps, I truly believe, is that very often we make financial mistakes. We do. In fact, I very often say that if you're parents and you've got kids, allow your children to make a money mistake. It's better for them to make money mistakes while they're young than to perhaps only make money mistakes later on in life. So are you aware of any money mistakes that you've made? Perhaps you've been carrying this weight of this burden around with you, and you need to forgive yourself for that money mistake. Perhaps you put all of your money into a business plan, and that business plan didn't succeed, and you're berating yourself. How could I do that? How could have I lost that money? Or perhaps it's a mistake like, I shouldn't have bought that car, or I couldn't have afforded that outfit and I shouldn't have bought it, or I shouldn't have gotten into the amount of debt that I'm in. So be a bit kind in terms of your relationship with yourself. If somebody else made a mistake, no doubt you would forgive them. Vitally important to acknowledge, think about why you did what you did, and then perhaps make a plan to correct the mistake and reach out for help and support. One of, I think, the key money mistakes many of us make is this issue around comparing ourselves to others. And we tend to do this very often when it comes to our financial lives. You know, this person seems to drive this car, or this person seems to have this, or this person is earning more than I'm earning, or why is it that this person has X, Y, or Z? And I guess the truth is there's always going to be somebody who might be better off than you are, But on the same token, somebody might not be as well off as you are. But the key thing is that word you. You need to focus on yourself. And I guess it starts with this attitude of gratitude, seeing the glass as being half full as opposed to half empty. So I love, one of my favorite motivational speakers is a guy by the name of Jay Shetty. And in one of his videos, I sort of just want to encapsulate what he says. He says, this morning, if you're healthier, then you are happier than the 1 million people who will not survive this week. If there's food in your fridge, clothes on your feet, on your body, shoes on your feet, and you've got a roof over your head and a bed to sleep on, you are wealthier than 75% of people in the world. And if you've got a bank account, and I'm sure because all of you are working, you do have a bank account, then you're in the top 8% of the world's wealthiest. So often we say, oh, I've got to go to work on a Monday morning. But if you've got a job, then you're luckier than the millions of people. And I think at the moment in South Africa today, around 32.6%, nearly a third of people are unemployed. And so perhaps we need to start off our mind shift and our money shift with thinking about what we do have versus comparing ourselves and thinking about what we don't have. And so one of the great exercises that I've personally done is a money mindfulness challenge. And so what we challenge you to do is to spend simply one full day thinking and being fully mindful of every cent that you spend. So if you find yourself spending the most money on a Saturday or Sunday, choose that day to become super money mindful and to really become aware of this. And I'm at this point going to hand over to Maria and ask her perhaps to share what she learned when she was doing this money mindfulness challenge, because I happen to know that she's done it. So Maria, over to you.
So I was raising my hand so you can pick me, pick me, pick me. So I did do this money challenge for 24 hours just to sort of look at how I spend money, whether intentional or unintentional, right? So what I did was I actually tracked my spending from the morning. So in the morning, I've got 2 children. So in the morning, I drive them to school. And usually my son will like dupe me into like buying something. So if I'm getting petrol, I'll get petrol and he'll say, oh, mommy, can we get like muffins? And then I noticed that when I get petrol in the morning, he actually dupes me into doing that. So I then bought the muffins. Lucky for me, there's like a 2-for-1 special, and it's like 25 Rand for 2, I think, at a Sasol that I use. So I do that, and I do the 25 Rand in the morning plus my petrol. So I'll do like 500. Immediately after you pour petrol for 500, the brain just goes to, I wonder how long it will last me. And for me, it was a week. I didn't have a very travel intensive week that week. So it was for like a week, got to the office and then started off with my day. We don't have a canteen in the office, thank goodness. But as soon as you realize, like I did on that day, I had left my lunchbox. So what I did was I ordered food, but I did like a quick wrap and something to drink, and that was about, I think, 69 Rand. So that was something else that I had to think about. Imagine if I were to do this every day, that's like 70 Rand a day. So I thought to myself, that's a lot of money. I would essentially spend literally over 1,500 Rand every month if I didn't pack lunch every day. Then I did go out during my lunchtime, but that wasn't to get lunch. It was actually to go and buy toiletries. And I promise you, I went to go buy something so small and just something singular. And I came back with like a bag of stuff from Dis-Chem. So I spent, I don't know if I want to say it, but I spent close to 1,000 Rand at Dis-Chem, and the intention was just to get, there we go. Thank you, Gabriella. Gabriella says that's the black hole. That's not your fault. They pulled you into it. I spent almost 1,000 Rand, and my intention was literally just to buy one product for my skin routine. And I spent literally 900 and something. So that was that. And then the lesson for the day from that for me was never leave the office. Just do what you're supposed to do, never leave the office. And then after that, drove home and went home. And then I realized I didn't ask my husband to take out anything to cook. But at that time, my usual self would call home and say, what do you guys want? And then I'll buy something. But the discount bill didn't allow me to do that, okay? Val probably isn't very proud of me behind the camera there, but it was such a good exercise because it wasn't pretentious. It wasn't like, oh, I'm in wellness, I know it all. It was just a day that I was just intentionally looking at how much I spent. And literally on that day, I had spent over 1,600 Rand. And I want to say unintentionally, the petrol was intentional and all of that, but I literally almost spent 1,600 Rand. Yes, on things that I will use, but that was not the intention. It wasn't part of the plan. It's just because my day wasn't planned out so nicely, I ended up just spending money. And I think that's literally one of my biggest fears. And I spoke to Val about this to say, when you're mindful about money, the mind runs with you. You sort of think about things like, well, how can I spend so much money in a day? What if that happens? Or what if this happens? So very often you avoid being mindful because you may be scared of where it's going to take you. Oh, thank you, Candace. Thank you very much. The 1,600 was worth it, even though it wasn't all for my skin. But thank you very much. But, it does have you thinking that I do have real money fears because just as an example, if I was not employed, small little things like getting those muffins for my children and having the affordability to buy certain things that I need will lead you to think about other things. So I don't know if you guys have these fears, but I want you to go on to Menti and just like maybe share with us what those fears are. But for me, one of my biggest fears would be, do I have enough money put away for my children in case something happens to myself or their father? And also, do I have the right person to administrate that for my children? That's a money fear for me. Do I have the right people in place who will do the right things for my children if I'm not here? I mean, that's a very serious one, right? It's a very big one. But we've got small ones as well. If my car breaks down right now, do I have money to actually fix the car? If I run out of, electricity right now, do I have enough money to actually top up my electricity? So we let our brains kind of run with it, and that's why most of the time we avoid being mindful. And I think when Val said it gives you a money lift to be mindful, that's when I said to you, okay, come, I'll do the exercise. Val, I don't know, how do you then deal with some of these things? So let me read some of what you guys have said in terms of that. Some of you have said not having enough. That's a real one for everybody, especially in South Africa. Will I lose my investing, and will the tax nail me, with all the money that I've put away? I'm not able to give my children what they need, not having enough money for retirement. I'm horrified of making debt. Do I need money for a rainy day? And then you've got somebody saying not having enough money to get through the month. I think for that one for me is the realest, especially with our economic climate in South Africa. So I wanted to get into a chat with Val to say, Val, if I wanted to know what are some of those fears that you have seen in your experience, and how do we deal with them?
Thanks so much, Maria, for asking me to sort of check in on this. And it's interesting to me that so many of your fears, other people are feeling the same way. So, that sense of you're definitely not alone. And a lot of people are sort of fearing unexpected financial emergencies, like what if the car breaks down? What about my future self? What about retirement? Say if I can't pay my bond or my car and it's going to be repossessed. Where are my family going to live? Say if I do lose money on an investment, I mean, how am I going to cope financially? And I guess what we almost need to do is ask ourselves, not like, what if, but what will I do if this happens? It's almost about like almost expecting that unexpected, because many things in life we can start to almost expect. And I guess what we almost need to do is imagine the situation before it happens. And what could I do now in order to alleviate that future panic? So, what if I was to lose my job? What am I going to do then? Well, I wouldn't have money saved up in order to pay for X, Y, and Z. So while I am working, how can I create that in case of emergency fund? Is that emergency fund more important than the stuff that I'm going to buy, for example? And so then prioritizing that, vitally, vitally important. Maria, your question of who will take care of my kids if I'm no longer here? Drafting a will, creating in that will a part that talks to creating a testamentary trust for your kids so that when you're no longer here, then the funds will be taken care of. So I almost think it's about being proactive as opposed to reacting to the situation. So often people spend so much time worrying about the things that might not happen, but then when things do happen, they're not able to cope with it. So I'm saying spend time right now thinking about the what ifs and then really plan for it. So I thought perhaps a good story to share would be like meet Mary. Perhaps you can relate to Mary. So she's in her 40s, she's married, she's got 3 kids, and her biggest fear is, what would happen if she's unable to provide for her family? And I guess her biggest asset is that ability to earn an income. And so vitally important for Mary to then think about, well, do I have income protection? If something was to happen to me, do I have income protection? And the interesting thing with the discussion with Mary is she did have income protection. So she had thought about it, but she wasn't aware that it was one of the employee benefits that was available to her through her company. So sometimes there are protection elements in place, but we're just not aware of them. So I would definitely say reach out to a financial coach, do almost a case study scenario. Say, what would I do if this happens? And what steps can I take today to mitigate that potential risk? So I really think that there are huge benefits to becoming mindful and to spend some time thinking about it. And I guess one of the biggest benefits is something money cannot buy, really that reduced stress. They say meditation can help you combat stress and anxiety, and that is the same in terms of becoming money mindful. A little bit of money mindfulness can help you navigate financial difficulties, because when you calm, you approach a solution with more clarity.
I'm
by
okay. How are
becoming
you?
money mindful, perhaps we
I'm
start to
busy.
make better decisions.
I'm busy writing
Sorry,
something in my
Val,
last week.
I just wanted to mute everybody.
I'm continue. How are you?
You see, we so mindful.
Val, can you please unmute yourself? I've muted everybody because we could hear somebody on the phone.
Awesome, no problem
Thank
at
you.
all. You see, we're so mindful of multitasking. We can't even enjoy this session without multitasking. I so get it. So really, my really selling you on the benefits is A, you're going to feel less stress. B, you're going to make better decisions, because very often when we make decisions, when we're feeling tired, stressed, or anxious, we don't make the right decision. And C, it can really increase our happiness levels, which is great. And so by increasing our happiness levels, that puts us into a better state emotionally, which very often could then reduce further financial mistakes. So it's all about, I guess, becoming aware of our money habits. For me, it all starts out by becoming aware of those habits. Like you said, Dis-Chem is a trigger for you. And I thought, oh my goodness, you're so right. It's a trigger for me. No disrespect to Dis-Chem. I love the store, but going to the shop is a trigger for me because inevitably I never window shop, I buy something. So, and how does this then impact my financial life? So I guess it's about becoming aware of our money habits that we have. And really, it's about engaging with you in terms of what are your money habits. So Maria, let's get personal. You've already shared your habit of sometimes popping into Dis-Chem, but what would be some of your other money habits that you have that perhaps you need to become aware of from a mindset perspective?
So I think one of the good ones that I've happened to carry for many years was to, you know how you'll get paid on payday and you'll make all your debit orders go from the same day. So I actually opted to do the opposite, because I mean, we all have different discipline, we all have different willpower, and mine at the point of making this decision was not very high, wasn't very strong. But I actually opted to make all my debit orders go from the first, because I was delaying having to pay everybody, because that would sort of restrain me, kind of build boundaries for me to sort of give myself like a nice little 5 to 7 day span where I'm literally just calm about all the purchases I want to make. It gives me a couple of days to sort of be rational about, is this a want or is this a need? And then I sort of have those couple of days where I am like leaving the money to be in my account and kind of thinking about it, processing, you know, kind of revamping the budget and all of those things. One of the good money habits I also have is I've got a very revved up shopping list. I do my grocery shopping across 3 stores. They're all in one center, so you don't have to worry about petrol money. They're all in one center, and I've kind of identified who's good with what in terms of pricing, you know, cleaning products, toiletries, and food versus fresh fruit and vegetables, who's the greatest in terms of pricing and quality, and then I'll do that across the board. So I have like a nice little Excel spreadsheet grocery list going on. That's one of my good habits. One of my bad habits, today you're having me confess in front of 350 people, Val. One of my bad habits is, well, it's good and bad depending on what it is. The online shopping for the clothes, horrible. Because I get them delivered at work and then I get home and then I kind of like slot them into the wardrobe like they've been there forever. And then when my husband says, "Oh, that looks nice," I say, "Oh, this old thing." And it's not old, so that's bad. But when I do it with groceries, and I use like a Checkers 60/60, for example, I save a lot of time and a lot of money. So yeah, I'm kind of mixed with the habits.
Well, thanks so much for being so honest, and I love some of the comments that the team are making. And I guess it's about all becoming aware of them. And we all have positive and we all have negative habits. One of the habits that I became aware of is drawing money at a non-my bank ATM. And I only became aware of how much money this was costing me when I started to sort of really take a look at my bank statements and saw like $30 for a withdrawal when I only drew 500 Rand. Like, is that really worth it? Online shopping for me is also like really not a good habit. Yes, Checkers 60/60 might be great in terms of buying certain items, but it might not be a good habit to do clothes shopping. Waiting perhaps sort of 30 days before, if you see something you really like, waiting a little bit might be really a key financial habit. So the good news is, you know, we all in the same boat together. We all have both positive and negative habits. But I guess it's about becoming aware of really how much the habits actually cost us. And here are just a couple of ways in where you could perhaps save thousands. And it might be like Dave, who buys a cup of coffee every single day for $20. How much does this habit actually cost him? Maria.
So I wanted to ask you something about habits. So I've got a family habit. It's not my habit. I've got a family habit. It's one of my worst irritations. So we've got subscriptions for like a lot of TV content and shows and things like that. So I never could understand having like a Netflix account and then a DSTV account, and then I feel like, and I don't watch much TV, I suppose, I feel like it's really just having the same same thing over and over again and paying lots and lots of money for it. So I have, my children be interested in a certain channel and it's available on a certain bouquet, and my husband would be interested in sports and news and all of that stuff, and it's only available over there. So we have like all these accounts kind of running all at the same time. How do I stop that? Because that's a very expensive habit to have those subscriptions kind of running in the same household. I feel like it's an overlap. So
Absolutely. In fact, I was checking out that, and I think it's a very real thing. And there's no disrespect to whether it's DSTV, Showmax, Netflix, anything. But I think we've really got to say, like, what are we using and what do we need? And perhaps making choices and adding them all up and working out how much am I actually spending on home entertainment, and can I afford it? And then sort of saying, well, is it worth it? So if you use it, great, but it's just like my gym membership. Once again, no disrespect to the gym, but I wasn't using it. So it wasn't giving me a good return on investment. For my daughter, it works. She goes to the gym 5 times a week. So that's great, but I wasn't using it. So why am I paying for it? So, I mean, it's really about making those choices. And I would say streamline. Select one that you really all agree to, whether that's your DSTV or Netflix or Showmax. Subscribe to that as opposed to paying for it all. And then perhaps make different choices, but it starts out by becoming aware of it. Vitally important.
All right, thank you.
Thanks,
I think
Maria.
that's helpful. That's quite decisive. Pretty also says share the subscription. My sister pays for Showmax. I pay for Netflix. My sister-in-law pays for DSTV, and then we share our credentials. Isn't that a plan? So Pretty says that that's what she's doing to sort of curb the cost. But I think it's what you are saying, Val. It's the fact that Pretty sat and thought, I'm not doing this. This is too much money, and then came up with a plan. So I suppose the mindfulness comes in is there to be aware of it, right?
Absolutely. Okay. And remember, it's not just 100 Rand for the Showmax subscription. It's 100 times 12 times however many years you're going to have that subscription. So you can't just see it as a monthly thing. You've actually got to work out the total cost. And so it's about almost these small changes that make a huge difference. As I was about to say, Dave, he buys a cup of coffee every day for $20. How much does it actually cost him? We'll say that's Monday through Friday, $100 a week, $400 a month, 4,800 a year. But if he was to change that habit and invest that, potentially over 25 years, it could be over $1 million because of this concept of compounding. Or it might be Sue. Every week she gets takeaways, or whenever there's load shedding, she happens to get takeaways. How much is the actual cost? Now, you might say, well, it's just 200 Rand on a Friday night, but annually it's 9,600. And I want you to think about it annually after tax, because that is, you've got to pay tax. So what's the real cost to you in terms of this? So I guess it's all about awareness, whether that's the DSTV, the Netflix, the Showmax, the coffee. For me, I'm terrible in terms of every day I buy a Diet Coke. How much is that actually costing me? Could I do something different and not perhaps begrudge myself the benefit? Zabalon, I would definitely say for a bachelor who can't cook, definitely start watching YouTube videos on basic cooking. I would definitely say that could be a key thing. Or find somebody who can teach you the basics of cooking and then really see how much is it going to cost you, or even do simple meals, cook once and then freeze and you can reuse it. But I guess it's all about really the cues, routines, and rewards. So one of my cues would be Friday night on the way home from work, I don't want to cook. And so the routine is to phone home and say, what do you want for takeaways? And then I reward myself without having to cook. So that was one of my cues until I started realizing how much it was actually costing. And so now the cue is, I don't want to cook on a Friday night. I still want the reward of not having to cook, but could I not get my teenage daughter to make a meal on a Friday night so I still get the benefit of not having to cook? Could be a solution. So it's really about becoming aware of those habits. What is the benefit of changing it and then doing it? But the thing is, you can't just do it once. You've got to be consistency in terms of that. So yeah, and we've got to live a little, but we've also got to become aware of how much those littles are potentially costing us. So another concept in terms of mind shift that I wanted to ask you about this morning is, what are your thoughts on the law of attraction? Do you know what the law of attraction is? Maria, what are your thoughts? Have you thought about the law of attraction? What do you think about this law of attraction? Do you believe it? Don't you believe it?
Big believer in it, big believer in it. And I think the law of attraction is all over. You know, I think we will give it a different term and explain it very differently. I believe what you put out is what you get back in, and it could be, you know, something similar. You know, the story of the wolves inside, you know, the wolf that will win is the one that you feed, you know, the most. I know a lot of people have heard that story, but the law of attraction is, for me, what I choose to focus on. I choose to water and grow. I'm a person who appreciates plants as well and flowers, and I feel like in my life they're a true reflection of life itself. If you keep nurturing something and watering it and doing, it gives back to you. So definitely, I'm a believer, Val. I'm a believer in the law of attraction.
Yeah, and I remember a couple of years ago, I'm being exposed to that, The Secret, and thinking, oh, it's a lot of rubbish. I
Oh.
don't believe it. But, you know, time and time and time again in real people's lives, I'm not talking about on YouTube, real people's lives, it's that ability to really start changing their thoughts and changing their mindset in order to create a different result. And whether it be, you know, somebody famous like Jim Carrey, where he wrote himself a check and then, you know, and the check was dated that he would earn this amount of money, and then he did, or whether it's as simple as somebody saying, this is what I want to achieve, and then, you know, really working. You can't just say, oh, I want to earn more, and then, you know, do nothing about it. So it's all about action. But let's take a short little watch of this video on the law of attraction, and maybe it will clarify what I'm trying to share. Let's take a listen to this. Once again, give me a thumbs up.
Have you ever noticed that when you buy a new vehicle, you start to see that vehicle everywhere? Why does this happen? Did everyone buy the same kind of vehicle the same day you bought yours? Of course not. So, what's actually going on? What's actually happening is that you are simply noticing more of that vehicle. The thing is this: when you bought that car was front and center in your mind. You were constantly thinking about it. And whatever you are constantly thinking about, well, you start to notice things of similar energy all around you. So the thing is that those vehicles didn't start to automatically appear all over the freeway. It's just that you started to take notice of them because that kind of vehicle became relevant when you bought yours. You see, you have a place in your brain called your reticular activating system. Your reticular activating system acts as kind of a filter for all the data that's around us. There is so much information surrounding us every single day. Let's say you walk into a busy shopping mall. There are thousands of conversations around you. You see thousands of people, yet you're not paying attention to what any particular person is saying until you hear someone say your name. Immediately, you zone in on that particular person among thousands of people all around you. You filter out every other conversation and zone in on the one conversation that is relevant to you. We pay attention to what is relevant to us. what we think about most. Why is this important? It's important because the average person has thousands of thoughts every single day. And a lot of the time, a lot of these thoughts are the same exact thoughts they had the day before. In addition, a lot of these thoughts are either dwelling on something bad in the past or fearing something that could potentially happen in the future. If you are constantly thinking these kinds of negative thoughts, your brain will influence your eyes to pay attention to similar energy and start to focus and train your eyes to see opportunities that reinforce what you think about most. That's why positive people are attracted to other positive people, and negative people are attracted to negative people. And people who like sports are attracted to other people who like sports. We are attracted to what we think about most because we tend to notice opportunities of similar energy the most. And of course, you can only act upon opportunities that you are aware of. That's why it's so incredibly important to pay very close attention to the repetitive thoughts you hold inside of your mind. Your thoughts have the ability to influence what you pay attention to. What you pay attention to determines the opportunities that manifest into your life. And the opportunities that you act upon determine your quality of life. Choose your thoughts wisely.
So hopefully you found that really beneficial. And I
Have you
definitely agree. It all starts with our mind shift. It starts with our thoughts. If you're constantly thinking there's not enough, there's not enough, there's not enough, you're going to manifest there's not enough. If you're thinking I'm a bad money manager, you're going to manifest that you make bad money decisions. So it starts with our thinking. And then it also, we're impacted by the people that we surround ourselves with. So for me, it was a really interesting exercise to think about the people that I'm surrounding myself with. Are they a good representation of who I want to be? When I started to think about that, I started to then think, oh my goodness, are they positive? Yes, they're positive. Great. So that means I'm a positive person. Are they impacting me in a negative way? Am I influenced by them in terms of how much they drink, or in terms of how much they swear, or in terms of whether they're good parents or not? But it's interesting just to, I guess, become aware of who influences us, because it's not just about our thoughts, it's about the people we surround ourselves with, certainly in terms of the law of attraction. So who influences you financially? Maria, earlier on you said your kids have an influence on you financially. Would there be somebody else who perhaps influences you financially?
So I'm very lucky to be surrounded by a very great team of financial coaches. And when we have interactions, they will do a fabulous job to sort of put a seed into your mind to think about it. So yes, my children are my captains. I listen to whatever they say. And then thank goodness I come to work and I listen to adults who know what they're doing. And then I don't do what my children say. So I've got a great bunch of colleagues that are big influencers in what I do financially. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So your colleagues have a positive influence on you. And then obviously your children or your partner might have a positive or a negative influence on you, and you've got to become aware of that. And I guess we've almost got to become aware of these triggers that cause us to do certain things, and whether if it's a positive trigger, great, but it could also be a negative trigger. So I'd love to sort of ask you whether you're aware of what your money triggers could be. Is it people? Is it places? Is it the time of, when you get paid, it's a trigger to make you feel like you should spend money? Are people impacting you, or is it a certain place that might be impacting you? So for me, a trigger is the mall. For me, a trigger is some of the people in my life. Definitely, Saturday for me is a trigger, because on a Saturday I think, oh, I'm not working, let me do X, Y, and Z. During the week, Monday through Friday, my financial habits are really good. So it's almost like we've got to take a look at that and think about it, but also take a look at, I guess, our emotional triggers. So, I had a situation just the other day, a group of girlfriends are all going away on a girls' weekend, and I was included, and, let's go away for the weekend. And then I realized how much that weekend away was going to cost. And I had to almost feel FOMO, that fear of missing out, but I couldn't afford it, or I chose not to afford it. I didn't think it was worth that. So even though I felt perhaps a little excluded that I wasn't going on the weekend, it wasn't part of my financial plans. And so vitally important to become aware of that. But very often with family, we can sometimes maybe feel a little manipulated. Maybe Maria, check in on this. Say a family member constantly asks you for money on a monthly basis, and you feel this level of responsibility. What would you be able to do if they're saying something like, well, I can't put food on the table? How can I potentially handle that type of a situation?
So Faith said this in the comments. She said, black tax is showing me flames. And Faith, the gist of it all is having a conversation is quite important, just to understand, am I going to be helping this person forever and ever? Am I going to be rather seeing that this person has a problem and understanding the source of your problem? So when I say have a conversation, just to sit down to say, I've been helping you. I'm glad to do it when I can, but there will be months where I cannot do it. In the months where I cannot do it, what is your plan? And lovingly so, because sometimes we would rather just send money and not have a conversation. But you might find that you could actually give somebody something that will empower them to make their own income, and therefore you don't have the responsibility to do it every month, is what I'm saying. So Val, I would definitely help my sister, but I would make it very, very clear that this is not going to be an every month thing. I can't afford to do it every month. And if I'm not doing it, who's going to do it for you? Or do we have a game plan going forward? Because we have to have a plan. I can't support you for the remainder of your life. So what's the plan? So conversation is what I would say.
Thanks so much for that. Great advice and great sort of guidance. And so I guess that the plan is sometimes always very different to the reality. And I know that we've run out of time, but life is a bit like this roller coaster, these ups and downs. And so I really want you to think about, if that's the reality, that, life is not going to be smooth sailing. Life's not going to be the series of upward lines. Nobody's life is like that. So if we want to start making some mindset changes, we need to almost be motivated by the small wins along the way. And the sort of S shape is vitally important. Whenever we go through a process of change, we need to start at the bottom. Growth initially is slow, but you need to celebrate those achievements every single step of the way. So a great example of this is, let's take a cancer patient. Every time they complete a course of chemotherapy, they're encouraged to ring a bell. And then, and it's a very powerful moment that they're celebrating. They're celebrating what change they've made, the fact that they have made a bit of progress. And that sort of celebration allows for this positive hormone, dopamine, to be released in your brain, this feel-good hormone. So perhaps we need to, in terms of making some mind shift changes, we need to celebrate our achievements, just like we celebrate every birthday, recognize those achievements, and then continue to celebrate. So enjoy the moment if you've actually achieved a financial goal, whether that goal is, paying off your credit card or buying a home or managing your money month on month. The celebration need not cost you money, but really it can. You need to share that win with others. So I encourage you to share your money wins with one another, and perhaps then You know, is it powerful to think of a money mantra? Instead of thinking I'm a bad money manager, could we perhaps think about a positive money mantra? So, you know, it might be, I am financially free. I am financially free, or there's enough in my life, or I'm grateful for what I have, or I give myself permission to grow and prosper. But sometimes if we repeat these money mantras, inevitably, just like that sort of secret, we start to then see those benefits. So we really encourage you to make mind shifts in order to ultimately achieve a money shift at the end of the day. So I know we've run out of time. I'd love your thoughts in terms of, if you've still got some questions, we'd love to open the floor to any questions. If you need to stay on, and if you'd like to ask, if you're able to stay on and you've got some questions, please don't hesitate to do so. Maria and I will stay on. We'd love your feedback on today's session on mentee polling, or if you'd like to make a note in the chat function, please do so. I'd also just like to remind you that the Financial Wellness Program is a part of Financial Wellness, and we encourage you to reach out and to gain financial help. And you can do that simply by clicking on the link in the chat function, and your financial coach will really be able to assist you. So hopefully Mindshift leads to Money Shift. The link is in the chat. And for those of you who need to hop off, totally understand. For those who are able to stay on, do we have any questions? Maria, any questions from the audience?
So I'm just tracking back a little bit before I read the latest questions, Val, because there's a question that I left right at the top so that we can just ask this question. I hope the person who asked it is still on the line, because they were actually just asking quite an important one. So I'm going to just track back. Let's see if I can find it. Thank you very, very much, guys, for the interaction. I really appreciate it. Let's see. So there was a very important question about, is it about finding balance between hoarding every cent for a rainy day or retirement while still also living a little bit, you know, getting the little life's luxuries for yourself? If so, how does one do this? How do you find the balance is the question. And then they say you buy 38 Rand cappuccino. Do you then forfeit something else for your cappuccino, or do you put the same amount away, or do you, downgrade to something different from the cappuccino and not stop drinking it cold turkey? So the question is, how do you find the balance, Val?
Okay, great question. So life is all about balance, without a doubt. So in balance in your budget, you need to spend around about 50% on what your sort of essentials, 30% on sort of the wants in your life, and perhaps 20% should be for saving. I'm certainly saying, yes, live in the now. You've got to live in the now, but you've also got to think about the future. So the 50-30-20 rule is a great rule in terms of creating that balance. If you're not saving 20% and you're only saving 5%, well, at least you're saving 5%, but you then want to start, even if it's just by 1% more every single year, creating that habit. But so many people sadly don't do that. So I think that that's vitally important. Life is about balance. I love my coffee. Got to be honest. So in terms of that, I love coffee. So I'm saying, for example, I was buying coffee on my way to work. So was my husband. And so we now take coffee in a takeaway mug. So we still get the benefit of the cappuccino, but perhaps instead of spending 30 Rand on the cappuccino, we're making it at home. We still have the benefit of drinking it on our way to work, but it costs 10 Rand versus 30 Rand. So there is balance. But it's about making those informed choices. I'm not saying that if you spend the money on the cappuccino, you've got to save that exact same amount, but it's about swings and roundabouts. And I guess for me, it's all about every financial Rand you spend, try and think about it as a choice. So if you choose to spend X amount of Rands on X, it's your choice. And if you feel empowered to make that choice, great. But are you making the right choices at the end of the day? Are you in the driver's seat, or is somebody else in the driver's seat in terms of making those financial choices? And literally, I think it's about that sort of that awareness, if you will. Any
Very
other
nice.
questions?
Very nice. So this is not a question. Just in closing, I wanted to share a comment that somebody made. They are unfortunately anonymous, but we allow that. We love that so that people can share openly. They're saying, I don't want to go into debt busters, but I wasn't mindful of the habits. I was buying with loans. It was unnecessary. Now I find myself owing way more than I can afford in loans and in hand debts. So don't wish this on anyone. It's already overwhelming. I'm at the point of going with the flow at this particular point. So mindfulness is important. So that was a nice comment to say, I now realize, had I been mindful at the beginning, I wouldn't be here, because now I was just winging it all the way through. I wasn't cognizant of some of the decisions I was making, but I wouldn't wish this on anybody. So thank you so much for sharing that, Anonymous. It really makes a difference to other people who are in the midst of making such decisions, to hear from somebody who's been through it. So thank you. Thank you very much, Val. Thank you so much for answering some of my questions in this session here. And thank you for sharing so much knowledge and content with us. As you guys can see, we are sharing how you can get in touch with Reality Wellness Group, and therefore get in touch with our coaches so that we can assist you in your finances. Remember, well-being is about taking care of many parts of your wellness, of your being itself holistically. So finances is part of that, emotional, mental, physical, so much more. Just contact us if you are in need to talk to somebody about anything psychosocial. That's 24 hours available. But with the finances, it's working hours, Monday to Friday from 8 to 5 with finances. That's where you can reach us. Anything from you, Val?
Thanks so much, everybody, for attending today's talk. Hope you found it valuable. We will send you a copy of the slide deck, and don't hesitate to reach out if you want to make a money shift and you're not quite sure of how to do it. Take the first step today. Reach out for financial coaching. Have a great day, everybody. All the best. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day.